Good morning, beautiful people. I hope that you had a very good week. This week, I have one question for you. Life has three types of slaves. Three types. Which one are you? To be able to answer this question, to give you the opportunity to answer this question, let me bring you back to the slavery time in early 1600. Where African people were kidnapped, taken by force with gun at hands from colonizers from the lands of their ancestors, brought by force from Africa through the seas, where more than half of them will die, and then brought into what was called then the New World, the Americas. They were brought in this new world where they actually never asked to be. They were brought to this new world where they went from being free men to becoming slaves, being free women to becoming slaves. When they came to this new world, quickly three groups came out from the one group of African people, of black people, were brought to the United States of America. The first group were the field slaves. The slaves who would be assigned to the field, to the cornfield, to the cotton field, and other fields. In that situation, those slaves will be imposed everything. They will be imposed the time where they wake up. They will be imposed the time where they sleep. They will be imposed the type of tools that they use to work in those fields. They will be imposed a time where they have the break, at how long they're working, and they will do all of this without being paid, without having a penny as a salary. These were the field slaves. Most of them kind of accepted the situation that it was impossible for them to change the field slave situation. They were desperate, they had no hope, and life would go on like that until they die. Aside from this group, you had another group. Few people actually from those field slaves would be brought into the slave master house. And those people, those slaves, were called the house slaves. The house slaves were in a different place. They were not in the field. They were in the house of the slave master. They were in a different place. It seemed that they had a different fate. They were not supposed to work in the field. They were somewhere in the house of the slave master. But mind you, they were still slaves. They were imposed at what time they have to wake up. They were imposed at what time they have to go to bed. They were imposed the type of household work that they had to do: wash the dishes, cook the food, clean the slave master clothes, make the bed of the slave master, get the slave master horses ready when he has to go out. They had to do all those things. And the story said that some of those house slaves would have the illusion that they had a different fate, and that somehow they were lucky. Instead of being field slaves, they became house slaves. But the reality was that they were still slaves. And some of the time, they would try to convince the field slaves to work harder, to do the job the way they were supposed to do it, so that at some point, if they're lucky or blessed, and I put that in quotes, they might have the chance to be selected at some point in the future as a house slave, where they will be able to leave the field for the house. And then there was the last group of slaves, the fugitive slaves. These slaves were part of the field slaves. They were working in the plantation. They were working in the fields. They were doing exactly the same type of job as the other field slaves. But the key difference between the field slaves and the fugitive slaves is that the fugitive slaves had hope. They knew that the situation could change. They knew that they could not stay a slave forever. They knew that at some point they would have to find back and get back, reclaim back their ability to determine their own future, their ability to determine when they want to wake up, when they want to sleep, how they want to work, for who they want to work, and how much they need to be paid for that work. In short, knew that at some point they had to become free men, free women. These fugitive slaves would have that in their mind. And day in and day out, they would think and plan their evasion. They would think and plan the breakout. The evasion from the slave master house, from the slave master plantation. They would plan that, and at some point, after thinking about it, after having a plan, they will finally execute the plan to evade, to run away, to run into lands where freedom was still a basic right for all humans, including the black ones. And then when they will try the first evasion, usually and most of the time it would not work for several reasons. One of them is that they were lacking experience on how to evade. It was their first time. Sometimes the plan was not perfectly executed. Sometimes the plan itself was not a good one. And sometimes they would have been too early denounced to the slave master by some of the house slaves that they were trying to run away. Once caught by the slave master, brought back to the slave master house courtyard, they will be beaten in public. The slave master was sending a message to all of the other freed slaves to tell them, here is what is going to happen to you if you try to escape. If you try to evade, you're going to be caught up, brought back, and beaten up. But the quite interesting thing which was happening after the beating by the slave master is that you would have a very few group among those fugitive slaves who would get discouraged and give up on the idea of becoming free men and free women. Give up on the idea of having their own destiny, running their own lives, and holding their own future. But most of the time, for the larger group of the fugitive slaves, after being beaten by the slave master, they'll be thinking to what? Guess what? The next escape. Bigger than the escape that just failed. They'll be planning in a more strategic way, with more care, with more details, with more caution, with more precaution, so that the next escape, the next evasion would work. These people were people who would keep trying to evade, to escape, until either the very day they manage and succeed in escaping or in evading, or until death take them away from this world. These were the fugitive slaves. People who had the ambition to be the own captain of their boats, to be the own chief and commander of their destiny, to be the one who decide what their future should look like. But here's the thing. Life, if you really think about it, is not really that different. All of us, you and me, were all brought to this world without asking to be in. We were born, and many things, most of the things I would say, were imposed to us. We never chose our parents. They were imposed to us. We never chose our brothers and sisters. They were imposed to us. We never chose the country where we wanted to be born in. The country was imposed to us by the social conditions of our parents. We never chose our social status. We imposed the school where we were supposed to go. We were imposed the level of income that we would have. Sometimes we even got imposed the level of the type of job that we could ever get. The type of houses that we would ever get. based on where and from who you get born. This is not very different from the slavery situation where everything is actually imposed. But once we get all born in this world where everything at the beginning is imposed, then you quickly see rising on the surface of the earth 3 types of individuals. The first group are like the failed slaves. They believe that their social and economic situation will never change. The things that they got born into will never change. They do not believe in the future. They do not believe that they can take back their ability to determine themselves, their ability to determine and to build their future. Then you have the second group. Those are exactly like the house slaves. Somehow, to some extent, they got a bit lucky. Their condition has not really changed, but they got some improvement here and there. They were poor, and now they're not really poor. They're kind of poor, but not completely poor. They're somehow better off compared to the poorest of their city. They have a job. It's not a top job, but it's kind of better compared to the people who do not have a job. They went to school. They don't have a great diploma, but they kind of have some instructions, which is, after all, better compared to those who never go into school. They have a life. It's not the best life. It has a lot of problems. They have to deal with too many problems, and things seem very constrained. But it's okay. They get content. They get happy with their situation. And then you have the last group of people. Those are the few for who nothing is normal. For who, when they're thinking about their lives, they see that everything has been imposed to them. They really had a chance to choose, to determine what they really want it to be. But they have this strong belief that they should be the captain of their boat. They should be the captain of their lives. They should choose what they want to be. They have the right to dream what they want to be, the type of life they want to have. These are the fugitive slaves. It's true that today they're still in a situation where everything seems imposed, but in their minds, day in and day out, they keep thinking how to change their conditions. They keep planning and they keep working hard because they want to live the life, not the one that was imposed by their parent and social conditions, but they want to live the life that they have dreamed of and they choose to. These are the fugitive slaves. And in this world, the one who succeeds are the fugitive slaves. Because by keep trying, by learning from their evasion, by learning from their failed evasion, failed escape, they somehow at some point finally manage to escape, finally manage to evade into lands of freedom, into lands of success, into lands where they feel like they own their future and they make the future that they want and they live the life that they want to live. They are the one who succeed. Thank you very much for watching. See you next week. Stay blessed. Bye.